Okay, so you want to buy a sports book. Last year, Americans put almost $150 billion in bets through legal sports books. And the math guarantees the house a cut of every single dollar that walks through the door. A built-in edge on every bet ever placed. And yet, the companies taking those bets spent years losing money. Billions of it. So how does a business with guaranteed math keep going broke? By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how a sportsbook actually makes money, why a guaranteed mathematical edge still isn't enough to turn a profit, why these books kick out their best customers, the exact opposite of a casino, and why a sportsbook was never really a betting business at all. Let's start where every bad idea starts, the price list. There are three ways to buy into this business, and they are three completely different worlds. But before any of them, there's a wall most people don't even know exists. You can't just build a sports book and flip the switch. To take a single legal bet in a state, you need something called market access. The industry word for it is a skin. Think of it like this. The state hands out a small number of licenses, usually tied to existing casinos. If you don't own a casino, you have to rent a slot under someone else's license. That rented slot is your skin. In a quiet state, that access might run you a few million a year. But in the states that actually matter, New York, Pennsylvania, Michigan, the skins are scarce, and the people holding them know it. You can pay tens of millions just for permission to operate, not for the app, not for the marketing, just for the right to exist in that state. So with that wall in mind, here are your three tiers. Tier 1, a single state online book. You rent one skin, you launch one app, you take bets from one state. Cheapest way in. Also the way you stay invisible forever. Tier 2, the serious move. You go after the big population states, you stack up skins in New York and Pennsylvania and Michigan, you spend tens of millions before a single bet is placed. Now you have reach. You also have a burn rate that would scare a venture capitalist. Tier 3, you try to build a national brand, and this isn't a license cost anymore. This is a war chest. The two companies that actually did this each set fire to billions of dollars before they ever saw a profit. To go national, you are signing up for years of solid red ink on purpose. Okay, you've picked your tier, you've got your skin. Now the question that actually matters. Where does the money come from? Every sportsbook runs on one mechanism. It's called the VIG, sometimes the juice, and it's the cleanest trick in gambling. Here's how it works. Take a simple bet. 2 teams, a coin flip game. You'd think a fair bet pays you $1 for every dollar you risk, but that's not what the book offers. The book offers you -110 on both sides, which means to win $100, you have to risk 110. Same on the other side. So no matter who wins, the book collects from the loser, pays the winner, and quietly keeps the difference. That difference is the VIG. On a perfectly balanced book, equal money on both sides, the house keeps around 4.5 cents of every dollar. Doesn't sound like much. Multiply it by $150 billion, and it starts to look like a country's budget. But straight bets aren't where the real money lives. The real money is the parlay, and especially the same game parlay. A parlay is when you stack multiple bets into one ticket, and all of them have to hit for you to win. Pick 6 things, get all 6 right, win big. Miss one, lose everything. To a bettor, it feels like a lottery ticket with skill. To the book, it's the best product ever invented. Because where a single bet carries a 4% edge, a multi-leg parlay can carry a margin of 20, 30%, or more. The book isn't hoping you lose. The book is selling you a long shot and keeping a third of the stake just for printing the ticket. That's why every sportsbook app pushes parlays in your face. The big build your own, the same game tab, the boosted long shots. Across the whole industry, the hold, that's the slice the book keeps, used to sit around 9%. By 2026, it climbed past 11%. And it's climbing because more and more of the money is flowing into those high-margin parlays. The bettors think they found the fun bet. The book knows they found the expensive one. And now we get to the part that breaks people's brains. A casino loves a whale. A rich customer who loses millions, they'll fly him in on a private jet, give him the penthouse, send a chef to a suite. Because over time, the math grinds him down, and he always comes back. A sportsbook does the opposite. A sportsbook ejects its best customers. If you actually get good at betting, if you start consistently winning, the book doesn't celebrate you. It quietly strangles your account. The industry term is stake factoring. In plain English, limiting. They cut your maximum bet down to nothing. People have logged in to find their max wager drop to single digits, $9, on a player who used to bet thousands. And here's the strange part. They're not even watching whether you've won money yet. They're watching something called closing line value, whether the price you got was better than where the line ended up. You can be down money overall and still get limited because the book can see you're going to win eventually. The casino's favorite customer is the gambler who can't stop losing. The sportsbook's worst nightmare is the one who's actually good. So they cultivate the loser and they exile the winner. Why would any business do that? Because, and this is the whole secret, a sportsbook has no automatic edge baked in. A roulette wheel cannot have a bad night. The 00 is built into the felt forever. But a sportsbook has to price every game by hand on every team, every player, every prop. And it can be wrong. The margin on a straight bet is thin, 4 to 6%. A handful of sharp bettors beating those prices can erase weeks of profit in a weekend. So the sportsbook isn't really running a game of chance. It's running a risk desk that survives by carefully choosing who's allowed to play. All right, let's name the machinery in plain words because the jargon is designed to confuse you. Handle, that's the total amount wagered, every dollar that flows through. Hold, the percentage the book actually keeps after paying out the winners. VIG, or juice. The built-in margin on the odds, the minus 110 we talked about. GGR, gross gaming revenue. The handle, minus everything paid out to winners, the real top line. And market access, or skin, the right to operate in a state, rented from somebody's casino license. Now, the hidden machine that actually decides who lives and who dies. Promotions, the free bets, the deposit matches. Bet $5, get $200. That's not generosity. That's customer acquisition cost, CAC. Every new bettor costs the book real money up front, sometimes hundreds of dollars, before that person pays back a cent. It's an arms race. Whoever can afford to burn cash on free bets the longest wins. Everyone else runs out of money and dies. Which brings us to the two villains who already won. DraftKings and FanDuel. Both of them started as daily fantasy sports websites back in 2009 and 2011. Two apps for picking fake lineups. In 2017, they tried to merge, and the federal government blocked it because together, they'd have owned about 90% of fantasy. So they couldn't combine. Instead, they both just won anyway. By 2026, these two control roughly 80% of all U.S. sports betting revenue. FanDuel sits near 44%, DraftKings near 34%. FanDuel's Irish parent company, Flutter, openly projects the American market hits $39 billion by the end of the decade and expects to own most of it. And after years of bleeding, these two finally make money. DraftKings flipped its margins from around 4% to 13% in a single year. Everyone else in this business is fighting over the scraps that fall off their table. So you, the new owner, you have to walk into that. And here's where almost every sportsbook in modern history has died. Two mistakes. They show up over and over and over again. Mistake 1. Believing a guaranteed margin means a guaranteed profit. The VIG gives you a beautiful top line, but everything underneath it is a knife fight. Promotions, customer acquisition, market access fees, and taxes. Let's talk about the taxes. In New York, the state takes 51% of your online gaming revenue. 51, the highest in the country. New York alone collected around $1.3 billion in betting taxes in a single year, more than the next 4 biggest states combined. Half your revenue is gone before you've paid a single employee. And here's the named failure that proves it. FoxBet. Think about what they had. The Fox media empire behind them, television reach most startups would kill for, and one of the biggest betting companies on earth, Flutter, as a parent. Real money, real distribution, real brand. And it still never cracked meaningful market share in a single one of its states. In 2022, Flutter reported a $313 million US loss, and FoxBet, together with their poker brand, was $91 million of it. So they shut it down. A media empire with a betting giant behind it could not make the math work. Mistake 2. Going to war with the duopoly without their scale. You cannot out-promote DraftKings and FanDuel. They have more money to give away than you have money, period. And if you try, here's what happens to you. Named failure number 2, PointsBet, the 7th largest operator in the United States. Real licenses, real technology, live in more than a dozen states. And they looked at the cost of fighting the giants, the promo war, the marketing furnace, and they decided America was too expensive to stay in, so they sold their entire U.S. business. Fanatics opened at $150 million. DraftKings jumped in at $195. Fanatics closed the deal at $225 million in 2023. A real, functioning sportsbook walked out of the biggest betting market on the planet because it couldn't afford to keep losing. Named failure number 3, Barstool. The casino company Penn bought Barstool Sports for the audience. Millions of loyal fans who love sports and love gambling. Perfect match, right? Couldn't convert them. So Penn sold Barstool back to its founder for $1. And then they made an even bigger bet, ESPN. They agreed to pay ESPN $150 million a year, plus a $1.5 billion commitment over 10 years, just to slap the ESPN name on a sportsbook. ESPN Bet captured about 3% of the market and stalled. In November 2025, Penn pulled the emergency cord built into the contract and relaunched the whole thing under a different name. The single most powerful brand in American sports could not dent the duopoly. So let's step back and say the thing out loud. A sportsbook was never a betting business. The vig is real, the math is real, but it's a rounding error next to what it costs to buy the customer who pays it. This is a marketing furnace that happens to accept bets. A machine that burns cash buying customers, hoping to grow big enough to stop burning before the cash runs out. The house always wins. That part's true. It's just that the house is not you. The house is DraftKings. Time to do the actual math. 2 scenarios, the dream and the nightmare. The dream. You're at scale. You're one of the two. Hold Time's handle becomes a money printer. $150 billion wagered across the country, $14 billion kept by the books, and that number climbing every single year as parlays push the margins higher. Once you're past the burn, like Flutter, FanDuel's parent, you flip to free cash flow positive, and the machine just prints, year after year. This is one of the great business models on earth. The nightmare. You're not at scale. New York takes 51% off the top. Promotions eat your revenue alive. The duopoly outbids you for every single customer worth having, and the only loyal bettors you manage to keep are the ones good enough to actually beat you. The sharps you then have to limit and kick off your own platform. You burn through your war chest, and then one day you sell the whole thing for parts. At $225 million if you're lucky, like PointsBet, or for $1, like Barstool. The gap between those two outcomes isn't talent, it's scale, and the cash to survive long enough to reach it. So here's the whole industry in one sentence. A guaranteed margin against an unguaranteed everything else. Survive that at scale, and you own one of the largest money machines in modern business. Lose the race, and you're a footnote, sold for scrap to the people who beat you. So if you really want a piece of this betting boom, and I get it, the math is seductive, let me give you the most important rule of this business. The smartest bet isn't opening a sportsbook. It's buying the stock, DraftKings, or Flutter, the company that owns FanDuel. Put your money there, and you collect a thin slice of every single dollar that everyone else in the country loses. No skin to rent, no 51% tax, no promo war, no sharps to chase off your app. Just the house edge, without having to be the house. Because in the end, the house always wins. Just make sure the house is your stock portfolio, not your sports book. If this changed how you see those betting ads you can't escape, hit subscribe. The next one's going to do the same thing to a business you thought you understood. And tell me in the comments, if you had the money, would you rather own the book or own the stock? I already know which one's smarter. I want to see if you do.